Of the Glen Board of Education. The board met tonight in executive session, and we're now ready to go ahead with the public portion of our meeting. We did have some correspondence this week, including a large number of emails from individuals in opposition to the elimination of the librarian position. We also had some emails from professional organizations, and I will read one of them out. Two of them were substantially similar, so I'll read one. This is an email from the New Jersey Association of School Librarians from Ms. Lisa Strabinger, who is the president-elect of that body. Her email is substantially similar to one I received from Dr. Juliette Massey, who is executive director of the New Jersey Library Association. So I will read the one from Ms. Strabinger. Dear Mr. Phillips and members of the Glen School Board, as president-elect of the New Jersey Association of School Librarians, I am writing to urge you to maintain the Library Media Center at Glen High School, grades 7 through 12, with a full-time certified school library media specialist. Every one of your school libraries is essential to meeting your mission and goals, to following your district policies, and to complying with state regulations. School library media specialists are the essential staff with training, expertise, and New Jersey Department of Education certification that can assist you in meeting district goals and complying with state regulations regarding implementation of school library services. Numerous studies throughout the United States have demonstrated that students in schools with effective school library programs learn more, get better grades, and score higher on standardized tests than their peers in schools without comparable resources. In parentheses, she says scholastic. I presume that's the study. They can't be replaced by aides, parent volunteers, substitute teachers, or classroom teachers. Nationwide, anecdotal studies have shown that when media specialists are removed, overtaxed teachers often find it necessary to simply cut research projects and information skills from their lesson plans. The reason? School library media specialists are highly trained and highly skilled in information science and, as such, are uniquely poised to provide students with essential skills for 21st century success. On June 3rd, the State Board of Education adopted the 2020 New Jersey Student Learning Standards. Included in the new Standards 9, Career Readiness, Life Literacies, and Key Skills, are strands for information and media literacy, technology literacy, and digital citizenship, which specifically relate to school library media specialists as the certified teachers who both instruct in evaluation, creation, and utilization of media and serve as school leaders in, quote, privacy, data, property, information, and identity, close quote. And that's from the New Jersey School Library Association. In addition, QSAC requires that the District Board of Education ensures that all students have access to library media services that are connected to classroom studies in each school building, including access to computers, school district approved instructional software, appropriate books, including novels, anthologies, and other reference materials, and supplemental materials that motivate students to read in and out of school and to conduct research. NJASL is very concerned about district's ability to adhere to both the current New Jersey Student Learning Standards and QSAC governance indicators, as a school library media specialist is needed not only to select and curate appropriate sources, but also to provide professional development to fellow educators in this area. A classroom teacher or teacher coach assigned to cover the school library does not have the proper certification and training to provide those services. Additionally, there is no approved NJ Department of Education certification for other job titles to serve in the role of school library media specialist. According to
I just wanted you to know that's 2 minutes.
Okay, I have one more line. According to New Jersey Administrative Code, the school library media specialist endorsement is required for any person who serves as a school library media specialist in grades preschool through 12. Sincerely, Lisa Strabinger. We also received communication from the American Library Association, but it did not come in time for tonight's meeting. So I will read it out at the next meeting, which is May 24th. And finally, before our last meeting, we received written communication from Ms. Kylie Crabb on the subject of To Kill a Mockingbird in 8th grade English. And we didn't have a chance to ask Ms. Crabb's permission, to make sure we had Ms. Crabb's permission to read it out at the last meeting. So since we have secured that, we will read portions of it for this meeting. So yes, David, if you will time it again, I think I've got the right portions. So, dear Mr. Phillips, Mr. Lawler, Dr. Harris, Ms. Boswell, and Ms. Ginsburg, I'm writing to all of you collectively regarding the above referenced book, To Kill a Mockingbird, written in 1960 by Harper Lee, that is currently required study for 8th grade English at Glen Middle School. In connection to my reasons for writing this, I will also mention Of Mice and Men, published in 1937 and written by John Steinbeck, which is another part of the required 8th grade curriculum. This year, an unfortunate reality in the 8th grade in regards to the academic scope and point of view, diversity of the required literature in English class, we have both, meaning she and her daughter, found much of the required reading to be wholly out of step with the current times and damaging to many Glenridge students as a community. I have some very serious issues and concerns with the choice of To Kill a Mockingbird in 8th grade required reading. My reasons are listed. The prodigious and regular use of the N-word within the text. To Kill a Mockingbird is the second of 2 books this year where this sort of language is deemed educationally acceptable as a primary example of literary excellence and gritty realism, in light of other less problematic, equally excellent, and equally gritty, yet nominally more diverse and inclusive literature, both modern and classic. And she cites examples including Zora Neale Hurston's Their Eyes Were Watching God and August Wilson's Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. To Kill a Mockingbird tells the story of racism through the lens that is entrenched in voyeurism as one of a white writer observing feelings from a removed and therefore necessarily limited point of view in observance of troubling experiences that are ultimately not their own to accurately describe or completely understand. This qualitative failing might have been best in 1960 or actually in the late 1930s, as was the setting for To Kill a Mockingbird. And she mentions also the same problems with Of Mice and Men. Today is a literary new day, and quite literally a new and culturally rich century. To offer Steinbeck and Lee as the discourse on the complexities of race, violence, equality, and class in America is a seriously flawed, if woefully lacking, misrepresentation of reality today. In closing, I've written this letter with the highest of hopes that an efficacious, sensitive, and practical top-tier academic resolution can be found for this ongoing problem. It goes without saying that this community and myself as a part of it are ready to help and pitch in for the ultimate goal of the best education for all of our kids. And that is the email from Ms. Crabb. And that is public correspondence. So we will go on to the president's report, which I will try to make brief. Yes, I'm sorry.
Wasn't there another public correspondence that gave permission for you to share?
There was one.
For Asian American bias?
That was not.
Am I misremembering it? That's what
We had an email that originally went to Duval and Jocelyn on Asian American bias. And I believe that I did say I would read it out, but with your permission.
Not that one.
Not that one?
No. The initials were FB.
FB. Okay. I will have to go back and look at that one and read it out next time, but I will. Apologies for that omission. The president's report. Last week was Teacher Appreciation Week. So since we did not have a meeting right before it, I wanted to give belated thanks to all of our teachers. It's been a very, very tough year, as we all know. The Assembly Budget Committee today heard testimony from Acting Commissioner Alan McWilliams, and all of us should be aware that the prevailing concern in Trenton is twofold, concern among legislators. The first is learning loss, which some people prefer to call learning acceleration. And the second is that federal money that we have had arrive and will have hopefully arrive again, and how it's being spent. There seems to be a fundamental concern in Trenton that districts may not spend it as wisely as they might. So the legislature, really the DOE oversees this process, but the legislature is clearly worried about it. And that is the president's report. So we will go on to the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Betsy. I want to first apologize for the miscommunication in the email that went out earlier today about the equity audit focus groups. Focus group for individuals identifying as Jewish, along with other religions, was omitted. We have reached out to the Olive Branch educators to make the necessary corrections. An updated focus group meeting link document has been sent out tonight for the community. So again, I apologize for that miscommunication. I am going to share my screen, so just please give me a second. All right. I want to start off my superintendent's report by just talking about the Glen Ridge High School has recently received some recognition, and it's always nice to be recognized. The first is that with the SAT scores for the class of 2020. Within the state, we ranked 27th for SAT scores. When you take out the admission schools, and admission schools could be county academies that are within certain counties. It could be districts that have several high schools, and there's maybe one of those high schools or multiple of those high schools that has a admission process in order to attend that high school. When you take out those non-admission schools, Glen Ridge ranks 11th. And in US News and World Report, Glen Ridge High School ranked 345th nationally, 14th in New Jersey. And again, when you remove the admission schools, we would be ranked first as a non-admission school. So it's again always nice to be recognized, and we're proud of our students and our teachers and our administrators for the continued success that we experience. Update on the pandemic. So the last couple of weeks, we've received good news. Our CALI, the COVID activity level index, has been at the moderate level for the past 2 weeks. And with that means that the high school and middle school can go from 6 feet social distancing to 3 feet social distancing. And it also cuts down the quarantine time for close contacts, which at the high level, we were at 14 days, but now at the moderate level, individuals who have close contact only have to quarantine for 10 days. And you can see our numbers have dropped significantly as far as our quarantine numbers. And if you recall, we were pretty high after the April break, just because of travel reasons, but we're more at a normal level. And our COVID numbers are actually a little bit down compared to what they've been in the past few weeks. Oops. As far as moving forward, the high school, the seniors have been attending daily since late March. As of today, the middle school students started to attend daily, and grades 9 through 11 will start attending daily on this Thursday. They are a little bit delayed because of multiple use of space because of AP testing. We have some large groups areas that are being used for testing, along with that teachers proctoring those tests, and furniture that's being used that normally wouldn't be used, but with the social distancing, we've had to use more teachers and more furniture to administer the AP exams. Elementary students are attending daily, and in March, we talked about we targeted May 24th as the day we would like to go have full days in the district, and we are on target to start May 24th as a full day. And the building principals are finalizing their schedules and their plans on offering lunch, and they will be sharing that with the public in the very near future. So start preparing to have your child attend school for a full day. And when we're starting to look at student events, the state continues to open up more and more. It seems like every week. Right now, with student events, outdoor limit is 500 people. On May 19th, the governor said that they could see the elimination of outdoor limits. The indoor performances and catered events are at 50%, whatever the capacity is, or 250 people. In either case, whether it's an outdoor event or an indoor event, safety protocols still must be in place, masks, social distancing, and individuals should be symptom-free. This is all terrific news as we're looking at our end of the year celebration events, promotions, graduation, prom. So those events, we're pleased that we're gonna have more of a full event than we were able to have last year. And we're very excited about honoring and celebrating the success of our students. The last topic I want to bring up tonight is the Media Center. And I want to thank the individuals that shared their feedback with the Board of Ed and me. We understand your concerns. The budget process is a challenge for the district every year with increased expenses frequently higher than our increased revenue. As a result, the district is left with difficult decisions. New personnel, initiatives, and faculty improvements are always left out of the budget. With that being said, the budget was approved on April 26th, which included the elimination of the high school media specialist position. And I just want to talk a little bit about the Media Center and what we're envisioning and some of the reasoning behind the elimination of that position. In the past, the Media Center was the library, was the information center. Individuals had to go to the library to get reference, to get text. And when we're thinking about old text, encyclopedias, in order to get access to books and magazine, even the microfiche machines. This is where information was gathered. As we continued to develop, we put a bank of computers in the library. And again, this is where the students had to go because they didn't have access to computers within the school building. So they had to go to the library in order to get information using the computers. As we proceed to modern day use, our current media center is used for multiple reasons. About 6 years ago, the high school media center had a facelift, and we are very appreciative because for the home and school funding that. We opened up the space a little bit. We created some cooperative learning spaces for the students. And then we also had the removal of the PCs in the library because we had gone to a one-to-one initiative at the high school level. Currently, the media center is used for peer tutoring, standardized testing, such as the AP testing that's happening now, student activities and presentations, staff development, staff meetings are held there, professional development is held there after school hours. Our middle school research cycle classes have occurred there. Parent events, if you are a high school parent, the guidance breakfasts were held in the media center. It's considered a student workspace before, during, and after school. Book circulation, a traditional feature of the media center, still happens. And when we're alive, our Board of Ed meetings happened in the media center. So it became a little bit more of a community center as the information became more available to our students elsewhere. As we move forward, we're looking to continue to evolve what the media center can become, and we really look at it as becoming a student center as opposed to a media center. And we'd love to we will be getting the student and staff input as we develop that concept. We plan to continue with our current services that we have with our media center. We're still going to have professional development. We're still going to have student presentations in there and activities. Middle school research classes will still occur. So there's all those things are great things that are happening now will continue to happen. But we're also looking to increase some of the services. We'd love to provide tech support for our students and staff, whether it's application or hardware. We're going to make that more readily available in that space. Academic support, we can set up areas where individuals who need the one-on-one work can have a teacher or National Honor Society member available to help them out. The College and Career Center, although we currently have one, it's a little bit isolated, and we're now putting it into the media center will give more access to the students. And we're looking to open up the space a little bit, even more so to have large group presentations happening in that space. So we're excited about the possibilities of what it can become. I think we're always looking at our spaces in all our schools as ways we can grow it, evolve it, and make better use of it. The high school will be managing the student center, and they'll be working with the science staff who will be in the media center, whether it's before school, throughout the school day, or after school. Program leaders will be used to get their input and to help determine what is needed as far as online subscriptions, resources, anthologies, and those types of recommendations are important for their program to continue. And we would all continue to consult with our district media specialists as we move forward in creating that space. Lastly, I want to talk about just the classroom instruction, and I want to really stress that education has changed, and so has the instruction that happens in the classroom. And at one point, we saw a lot of isolation in education, but today's instruction is really an integration. It's whether it's social emotional integration, whether it's integration of technology. Content is not taught in isolation anymore, and it's important because of that. We're able to do more in the classroom and integrate concepts and practices and teach cross-curricular content. What has changed instruction immensely is just the access to information, where students at one point had to go to the library to get that information. Well, that information is now mobile, either through their Chromebooks or through their smart devices. Students have access to the information, and they're using it in the classroom. And because they're using it in the classroom, the teachers have had to be trained and have had experience in teaching digital literacy and digital citizenship. And that's infused in our curriculum throughout multiple buildings. It's not done in one isolated area. It's not done by one type of teacher. It's done by a multiple of content teachers, counselors, and through cycle classes, including in seventh grade. We have a social media class that we go through a lot of different concepts as it relates to the digital world. Research has definitely changed also, where we're seeing more research done in the classroom, more thesis started. The teachers are going more in depth in that research process and teaching the students, and that's happening more and more in the classroom because of the access of information is readily available to the students and teachers. The middle school research cycle is an important class for our middle school students, and it's, as we look at our cycle classes, a lot of them there are to develop to supplement our classroom experiences. Just like we offer cycle classes for music and art, we want to expose them, but we also want them to be supplement to what they're going to experience when they're going into a full half year or full year course. But what I think what has significantly changed the most is just what is happening in the classroom as far as instruction and being critical thinkers and analyzing texts. The teachers have a great deal of resources that they didn't have years ago. They're looking at author purposes. They're looking at primary sources. They're developing theses. They're comparing, contrasting different pieces of work. All these are skills that are being taught in the classroom and will continue to be taught. The social studies teachers have been taught and are using document-based questioning. This is a program that we brought in. I believe the Education Foundation funded it. So we're looking for ways to develop every student as critical thinkers, and that is happening within our classroom on a daily basis. And we've noticed that when we start looking at our standards and how they have changed and the expectations of what is occurring in the classroom has changed. So at one point, we were at, this is a library, this is where you get information, this is a classroom, this is where they teach content. Those worlds have collided as technology has been infused in our world. So these concepts led to the decision that was a very difficult decision about eliminating the high school media specialist position. And I know as we look at possible solutions moving forward, we have received numerous inquiries about the possibility of using the American Rescue Plan grant to fund the high school media center position. I just want to make sure everyone's clear. At this time, there's been no confirmation in the amount of funding we will be getting and the details of acquiring those funds. So we're still waiting for information from the state level to fully understand what those funds will be, when will we, how do we get access, and when will we get access. And when we have that information, and we can then take a look at and take in consideration of reinstating the high school media center position. But at this time, we just don't have enough information to commit to any amount of spending on any topic related to that funding. So that is my superintendent's report.
Okay, before we go to public comment, board members, do you have any questions or comments?
I have a comment, I guess, that seemed to answer all the questions that I read in the emails that we received, and seemed to clear up some very material misunderstandings. But my comment would be, as the chairman of the Finance and Facilities Committee, and having had to participate in this decision, which is harder for those of us who are parents, volunteers on the board than it is for any of our constituents, because we're right here on the ground having to help make the decision. That the comments that we received, the emails, the letters, I just, to take a positive from this, we're so by and large productive. It was a civil exchange of information. It was really civil discourse in Glen Ridge, the kind of civil discourse that we got used to for so many years. And I was really heartened. I mean, aside from one household that just couldn't bring themselves to do it right, the level of civil discourse was just so high. And I don't know how things are done in our neighboring towns on this, but I was really, really pleased by the amount of community involvement. Obviously, it's an emotional issue for some people, but it really remained academic and civil. And so I look forward to everyone staying involved in important issues, all the people that jumped into this. I'd love to see you stay involved and continue to exchange ideas and information in this very civil way going forward.
Okay, any other questions or comments from board members? Okay, now I have a constituent who always reminds me to tell you how many of us are on the call. There are 119 people, so minus 14 on the panel, so 105 of you. So now it is time for public comment on agenda items only. The procedure we follow here is that if you have a public comment, use the raise your hand function on your the bottom of your screen. You have when you are called on, I'll recognize people. I'll try to do it in the order that they raise their hands. When you're called on, give us your name, your affiliation if it's applicable, and your place of residence. And then you have 2 minutes. My friend, Mr. Campbell, will be timing, and he will let us know when the 2 minutes is up. So with that, does anyone have questions or comments?
Just one, just Betsy, just to remind everyone to state their name and their place of residence.
Yes, I did. I thought I just said that. Okay, any hands raised? My screen is not cooperating here. Has anyone raised a hand? Let's see.
Megan, you can unmute.
Yes.
Okay.
thank you.
Hi, sorry. So can you hear me? Everyone can hear me?
Yes,
I'll do
yes,
it.
we can
I'm
hear
Megan Deneen. I live at 71 Windsor Place. I have 2 children in the district, one of which will be moving to the high school next year. And my mother is in fact a library media specialist. So I guess I have a bias myself. But you know, I have been a long-term RAS library volunteer, and you know, I see the children even in RAS getting assignments and, you know, having to work with, you know, finding research and finding things that are true and correct. And I think today, with the access to all of these things that the kids have, which I agree is true, finding correct information and narrowing down correct information and learning how to search things properly is just so important. And taking away a resource that is available for kids, especially maybe the quieter kids who aren't the ones pulling at the teacher in the class, or who aren't like the teacher's pet or things like that, a place where they can go and have someone that they can work with who is dedicated to them and helping them find true and correct resources and data. I understand it's not in an encyclopedia anymore, but when I was doing research, certainly the teachers were wonderful, but the teachers have time for a certain amount of kids. And when you're going through a research paper for your teacher, you're not going to ask them for content. So I think having an outside source that's available for the kids to direct them and to teach them how to find reliable information is really important. And I see my son will, I guess, be taking this research class next year in the middle school. And I'm just curious who would be teaching that, or who's going to be in charge of doing these things if you don't have someone that's trained specifically in media and research. If it's just going to be a you know, every class is going to have someone different, and it's just going to be a non-dedicated professional, especially an aide is not suited to take that role. And I just am disappointed personally that is a position that just many kids could use or could be pointed to. And if it is an underused resource or was an underused resource in the district, I'm sort of surprised by that, because I've heard that the high school is a place where kids prepare for college and prepare for sourcing information and learning how to do that properly.
Okay. Thank you. I see, and forgive me for this, Iveth or Eveth Molinado.
Hello, my name is Yvette Molinado, and I am representing on behalf of the American Library Association.
Okay.
I am from Springfield, New Jersey, and I just wanted to read and have on record and file a letter that was forwarded to the Board of Education members and the Superintendent Phillips from American Library Association. Dear Superintendent Phillips, President Ginsburg, and board members, at a moment when the ability to navigate a vast and constantly shifting world of information is a matter of profound consequence, we are alarmed to hear that Glen Ridge Public School proposes additional cuts to the number of certified information professionals, librarians, or other school library media specialists, leaving students throughout the district without appropriately staffed libraries. More than 60 studies from across the country show that student achievement, from reading scores and digital proficiency to graduation rates, is higher in schools with professionally staffed libraries. These findings are no accident. School librarians are the heart of their schools and central to their district's goals. Pairing National School Library Standards and the New Jersey Learning Standards, school librarians facilitate students' examination of diverse perspectives and experiences, collaborations towards individual and common goals, curation of resources for personal and academic growth, reflective practices that nurture exploration and innovation, and capable and ethical use of information and technologies. They impact every learner in their schools, advancing initiatives that ignite students' passions for reading, inquiry, and lifelong learning. They are also invaluable partners to teachers and administrators, enhancing resources for instruction and assessment and providing professional development and technology support. As your district addresses the impacts of COVID-19 on students, school librarians are integral to your community's resilience and to the priorities outlined by Education Secretary Cardona for allocation of the ARP elementary and ESSER funds.
Ms.
I think
Maloney,
that's 2
if you
minutes.
could- yes, if you could wrap it up, please.
Sure, one more sentence. With previous cuts to professional library staff, Glenridge students are already at a disadvantage to their peers and other New Jersey districts. We encourage you to uphold the district's commitment to excellence and equity and appropriately staff every Glenridge school with a certified librarian. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, next I see representative of the New Jersey Association of School Librarians.
Hi, Beth Thomas, current president of the New Jersey Association of School Librarians, Springfield, New Jersey. I am speaking tonight to ask you to reconsider the elimination of the grades 7 through 12 school library media specialist position, as there is currently no certified school library media specialist on staff at Ridgewood Avenue School, and the pre-K2 school library media specialist is shared among multiple schools. This cut will mean that students from grades 3 through 12 will not have equitable access to a library media program. Just as a science classroom is run by a science teacher and an art classroom is run by an art teacher, a school library program and the corresponding facility is developed, implemented, and maintained by the appropriately certified and highly qualified staff member. This is not a position that can be filled by classroom teachers, substitutes, paraprofessionals, or volunteers. As a former ELA teacher, I can attest to the fact that the training and preparation school library media specialists receive in their master's level work is beyond the scope of a K-12 teaching certificate. School library media specialists are experts in information science and are the highly qualified educators certified to run a school library program. When school library media specialists are cut, shared between multiple buildings, or are pulled from the library to cover gaps within the building, their students and staff suffer the consequences. In addition to being the highly qualified staff member certified to teach information literacy, a school library media specialist plays a key role in supporting literacy instruction by curating collections of print and digital books. Many titles are available via ebook and audiobook formats. However, not everything is available digitally. Given the enormous amount of time students are spending on screens, they would benefit greatly from having access to a robust collection of print books. Although classroom library collections support literacy, they do not have the breadth or depth of a school library collection. Materials provided through the school library are selected from professional journals and trade publications to align with district and building goals, the curriculum of the entire building, and the interests and abilities of the student population. The return on investment of a school library cannot be overstated. For the reasons listed above, and too many others to include in a 2-minute statement, please reconsider your decision to cut the grades 7 through 12 school library media specialist position, and please explore reinstating the grades 3 through 6 position. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Trisina Strong Beebe, and forgive me if I've massacred your name.
Thank you. You said it correctly.
Oh, I did.
I'm here as the advocacy chair for New Jersey Association of School Librarians, but I am representing the college and university section and research libraries in New Jersey chapter. We received several issues from parents and community members that were concerned. So we are urging the Glenridge School District to employ certified school media specialists in all school buildings. As an associate professor and the chair of the community's college library, we know how important it is to have a full-time certified school library media specialist in every school. School library media specialists receive graduate level training in many areas which are essential to 21st century learning environments. No other faculty member is as uniquely qualified to ensure that students are equipped with skills to succeed in the increasingly competitive global economy. Skills like information literacy, critical thinking, finding, evaluating, and ethically using information. The lack of a school media specialist during a student's high school years weakens their preparedness for success in higher education and success in the workplace. We live in challenging times where information overload is ever present, misinformation is widespread, and navigating truths and facts is of utmost importance. A school media specialist can help students learn to discern valid information from the abundance of sources that they are faced with every day. These information literacy skills are lifelong learning skills, and school media specialists ensure that these skills are taught via developmentally appropriate pedagogical strategies. Economic challenges are unfortunate and the norm in education, but the critical role that a school librarian media specialist plays in the educational development of a student must be considered. As librarians in higher education settings, we see the results of the success of a school library media specialist every day. Students who come into college and research libraries are fully prepared to use our resources and have a strong foundation in their local schools. We talk about how they find information. Classroom teachers may play a pivotal role in a child's development, but it is the librarian in the school that is the information literacy expert, and often the only staff member with the education, expertise, and time to ensure the students are receiving a thorough education in this area. The ACRL NJ Executive Board urges Glen Ridge Board of Ed to ensure that all students are prepared to meet the challenges of the future by employing strong, qualified, and certified school media specialists. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. I see Molly Eisen. Molly?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Excellent. So Molly Eisen, a class of 2009 graduate, former Board of Education employee, as well as a current language arts teacher in West Orange. Before I read my prepared comments, I just want to say I was very disturbed by Mr. Phillips presenting, primary sources and DBQs and thesis statements as a brand new thing when this has been taught for decades. So for him to present it as like a brand new thing that's being taught and a new wave in education really shows how out of touch administration seems to be with what actually goes on. But anyway, Glen Ridge has always boasted about the excellent education that is provided for every student who passes through. But decisions like cutting the position of the high school librarians serves to harm the reputation of the district, not to mention lessen the quality of the education students receive. Frankly, this is embarrassing. I have grown up with, been friends with, babysat for, and or taught your children. I know your children have personally benefited from the librarians in the district. So I find it especially disturbing that this proposal would be supported by any of you in the first place. Then I have a whole paragraph about Mrs. Savio and the GRHS library, but you already have that emailed to you. So in the interest of time, I will skip that part. But truly, contrary to what some of you apparently think, physical books are not outdated and research skills should be taught by an educator who is fully trained to do so. To think that someone else can just step into that role is frankly insulting to all librarians. And how dare you put more on teachers' plates when I know for a fact as a teacher that we are already asked to do way more beyond the scope of our written responsibilities, which we do because we're here for the kids. There is no substitute for a high school librarian, an individual with the knowledge and authority of skills that are so important in today's world. To think that there is, as I said, is insulting. Yes.
Betsy, that's 2 minutes.
If you could finish up, please.
Yep, I have 2 more sentences. Hard decisions have to be made, but I question the true motivations when the answer is to cut a position in which not only is the individual, the union present, but one that provides resources and assistance to teachers and students alike. Glen Ridge doesn't get to call itself an excellent district and boast about its accomplishments when you do something like this. Frankly, I'm embarrassed right now to be a former Glen Ridge student.
Okay, thank you. I see James McGuire.
Unmute. There we go. How do you do? My name is James McGuire. I am one of the New Jersey Education field reps for Essex County. I have been asked to read a portion of a letter from Mr. Sean Spiller, the Vice President of NJEA. Dear Mr. Phillips and members of the board, I've learned of your unfortunate intention to eliminate the 712 library media specialist. While I cannot attend your meeting tonight, I write to provide you with information that I hope will cause you to reconsider this plan. NJA believes every New Jersey student must have access to comprehensive school library media programs within the educational setting. We believe these programs should be staffed by New Jersey licensed and certified school librarians and qualified educational support professionals. It is basic common sense that we need professionals in these areas helping our students. As noted by the New Jersey Library Association in testimony to the New Jersey State Board of Education on January 8th, 2020, school libraries with certified school library media specialists have a measurable effect on the reading scores of students across the country. They prepare students for success in college and careers by teaching the research, information, media, and digital literacy skills required for 21st century achievement. They're trained to develop current and diverse collections of print and digital materials that address a range of ability levels. And certified school library media specialists create spaces within the school that are safe for all students and provide materials and activities to support school social and emotional learning. School library media specialists also promote literacy and inspire a lifelong love of reading and connect teachers and students with materials in a variety of formats that encourage growth and knowledge. The result is that certified school library media specialists have a measurable impact on reading scores and overall student success. The comprehensive school library media program, the Glen School District, has surely helped the students in your communities achieve at an exceedingly high level, and your district has enjoyed for many years. It would be a great disservice to your community to sacrifice such an integral cornerstone of your educational success. It is my fervent hope that you will reconsider this proposed plan and sustain the library media specialists currently employed by your school district and retreat from any plan to further reduce or modify the library media program for grades 7 through 12. Sincerely, Sean M. Spiller, Vice President of the NJEA.
Thank you, Jim, and please convey our thanks to Sean. Aaron Ackerman.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Erin Ackerman, 278 Bay Avenue. I have one child in the district, and thank you all for your service to Glen Ridge. I oppose the elimination of the school library and media specialist position and ask that the board use relief funds when we receive them to reinstate this position. As a former college professor and now a college librarian, I'm very familiar with what happens in the classroom. And therefore, I believe that the board's decision to eliminate this position devalues information literacy and hurts students' college preparation. To say that other teachers teach the research class or teach research in their classes misses the importance of librarians' specialized expertise as a support to both students and teachers. Classroom teachers teach research differently than do librarians. Both approaches are needed and should work together. Teachers tend to be more focused on subject content and less focused on a broader understanding of the habits and metacognitive elements of information literacy. There's been so much innovation around information literacy pedagogy in recent years. Without a professional who is trained in and following that research, our school district will miss out on being able to infuse this into the curriculum, as Mr. Phillips outlined. If this position is not reinstated, I want to know how will the school district meet the state requirements to provide library media services under the direction of a certified school library media specialist. I am also wondering how many teachers at the high school are currently carrying additional teaching assignments, and how many teachers are therefore available to take over the research class, should that still be offered, and what are their qualifications for teaching information literacy. Mr. Phillips referenced the district media specialist, and I wanted to know who's considered that, who holds that title. And finally, I do hope, because both the federal and New Jersey governments have said that ESSER funds can be used to prevent layoffs, I really hope that the board will consider, when we have those funds, as Mr. Phillips said, I hope that you will consider using these funds to save this important knowledge for our district. Thank you.
Thank you. Rob Farden.
G'day, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Thank you. My two boys are in Central and Linden. I live at 10 Victor Avenue, and we've only been in Glen Ridge for 2 years. So this is obviously my first Board of Ed meeting, and I was shocked to find out, one, we no longer have a librarian, and that this extra position was also going to be cut. Everybody who has already spoken has provided more detail from the level of professional organizations who study this. I would like to second everything that they said from a personal perspective. I think many people put their students through Glen Ridge High Schools because it's an excellent rated public school district. And if you're like me, we can't afford private school. We come here and we pay the taxes for a private school education, or as close to that as we can get. And I had a similar experience in Australia. I want to just take care of one note that while few students might use the library, that's always been the case. Too few students have always used the library, but for those who have, it has sometimes been the main source of richness in their education. To add to what people have said before, I have lived the difference between what trained library staff can lead you to, help you navigate, help you find, help you show things that you didn't even know existed. And I would regard Superintendent Phillips, thank you for the description of the integration of research skills and media literacy throughout the classes. I do want to say I am skeptical that hardworking and expert teachers in their own subjects can deal with just how much there is there when it comes to both physical access to information in physical libraries and these days online access. I would actually like to see the position of librarian reinstated, as well as this media specialist not cut, because I regard the job of teaching students to navigate the world of research beyond the basic subject matter taught in classes as something for which more staff are provided, as well as having some of the basic skills seep into ordinary class curricula. That was off the cuff. Excuse me, so many of my points had already been made. I tried to add a personal note to that. But again, deeply skeptical that teachers can remotely do what these specialists can. And that's not a knock on teachers. I would support both.
Betsy, we're at 2 minutes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Farden. Ingrid Kozlowski.
Okay. Good evening. I'm Ingrid Kozlowski. I live at 117 Midland, and I have 2 students at the high school. Additionally, I am a certified English and elementary teacher with even some experience at Linden Avenue School, and I currently teach 4-year-olds in town as a preschool teacher. I am shocked and disappointed at your plans to eliminate the high school library media specialist, because a library is so much more than just a room with books, and a librarian is not just any certified teacher, but a highly specialized, qualified specialist. It is unfair to ask any other staff member to assume those responsibilities as it is to require a singular library media specialist to cover grades K through 12. That is stretching any person too thin. I am thrilled that we do not teach research skills in isolation. That is how it should be and should have been for quite some time now. But as has been said, there are specific skills that which a librarian with a master's in research science can really only convey to that depth and level. Not having this librarian at the high school is going to leave a gap that is currently already in grades 3 to 6 and now will be in grades 7 to 12 on top of that. Our students already have issues with being prepared for the rigors of college, even in an academically oriented school like ours. They need more discernment in how to wade through all of the information that is there. I could speak for my children. If you have a computer and say, look it up, it is overwhelming to them. They need someone to give them direction. The librarian is usually who that person is. If our students are not getting this specific guidance at this level, they're going to move on to college and they are not going to find the success. This is all going to have a trickle-down effect that goes as far as our property values. I will tell you right now, I would not have moved to this town had I
Betsy, we're
known
at 2 minutes.
that we didn't have a librarian. And the families that I'm teaching right now have great concerns as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Maggie Reed.
Hi, I have two grown children who went through the Glen Ridge school system. I live at 960 Bloomfield now. They're 25 and 22 and graduating from, one graduated already from Ohio State University and the other's graduating from University of Delaware this month. I had so many positive experiences, and my children did too, with the librarians at all of the schools. And I really want you to reconsider eliminating these positions. I see that you're taking comments and questions, and I'm just wondering if there's going to be any action after that, as opposed to just, pacifying us by letting us speak our mind. So that's one question. And then the other question is to address the second letter that you wrote, that you read, Ms. Ginsburg, about the To Kill a Mockingbird. And I'm wondering if in the wake of everything we've gone through and seen and noticed this year about racism and systemic white supremacy, if you'll be considering the 1619 project and teaching more diversity and real actual history as opposed to white history. Those are my two questions.
Okay, let's take the second one first, and I'll defer to Mr. Phillips on that.
At this time, we're reviewing our curriculum. We have included a diversity component in our English and social studies curriculum. So we're trying to diversify that as much as possible. We are not considering doing 1619 project at this time. To answer your question.
Okay, and your other question about next steps. As Mr. Phillips mentioned, the most recent tranche of federal money, the ARP money, we have only the sketchiest of directions from the Department of Education on how to apply for it, when it's going to arrive, what the appropriation will be, and exactly how it can be used. They do make reference to avoiding layoffs, but and I spoke with DOE today to try to find out when we get more specifics. They may be forthcoming at the end of the month, but there are no promises. So we can't move forward in any way to spend the ARP money on the restoration of this position until we know the specifics of the process from DOE. You can't allocate money when you have so little information. So that is the answer for right now. Not the answer for forever, but the answer for right now. Thank you. Karen Eisen.
Hi, I'm Karen Eisen. I live at 25 Douglas Road. I am the proud parent of 3 Glen Ridge grads, including the amazing Molly Eisen, from whom you just heard. As a law school dean and professor, I agree with all of the substantive comments so eloquently expressed this evening, and not as eloquently expressed in my own written communications to you on this subject. I will tell you that in a law school, our librarians are not professors and our professors are not librarians. You have 2 very, very specific skill sets. And I think the same is true here. But getting to my question, unless I misunderstood the superintendent's report and the president's last comment. Is this a done deal? I sat on this Board of Education for 12 years. During the time when the community voted on the budget, that was the way budgets were passed. And so the community would have a heads up when something like this was going to happen. And I can't recall anything like this happening. But whenever something, the elimination of a position was under consideration, the community had a heads up and they had an opportunity to speak and give input before it happened. So my question is, are we too late, or are we spitting into the wind tonight? And if so, what is the avenue open to the community for people to tell you, the people who have elected you to represent us, what is our opportunity to express an opinion and give our ideas and be heard on issues such as these?
Okay. Mr. Phillips, would you like to comment on the budget process and timetable?
Sure. As far as the budget process, we advertised from the previous January, actually about a year and a half before the budget presented, that date in April when the final budget will be presented to the public. As we're going through that process, previous March, we present a tentative budget to the public, and in that tentative budget, we do talk about cuts. We don't get into detail because they are personnel matters and it is a tentative budget. So we are not mentioning positions that might be cut in the final budget because of the personnel involved. But at that time, we do indicate that there may be cuts in personnel. In this past year, we actually, that was one of the line items presented in our tentative budget, was personnel cuts. From there, again, we continue to advertise and promote that our budget hearing is that second meeting in April, and the public has a right to come into that meeting and listen to it and express their concerns with what is being proposed that day.
Okay. Thank you. Holly Belli, and I apologize if I've slaughtered your name as well.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
My name's Holly Belli, and I live at 46 Willow Street here in Glen Ridge. I have a 2020 graduate who is now going to be a sophomore in college here in New Jersey, and I am also the director of the Bloomfield Public Library, your next door neighbors. And I would like to talk to you a little bit about adults, because all of our children will grow up to be one, and I get those adults at my library. We live in a very well-educated part of New Jersey. We are fortunate people, and I can tell you that grown adults do not know how to evaluate a source, don't understand how to find what they need. They can't do their taxes. They can't find the tax form that they want. You are asking your high school students to learn how to navigate the internet, to learn how to find what they need with whatever time their teachers have left over to implement that. And that is a very, very short-sighted and poor decision. And I would refer to you to the news today to show you how difficult it is to get the right information in the hands of a grown adult. Our society reveals this to us daily on the front page of the New York Times. People do not know how to evaluate information, and we have whole cults now of disinformation that are taking over our political discourse, our civic life. This comes directly, this kind of education, this kind of discernment comes directly from school librarians. It is imperative that we have a professional librarian available to our kids to help them navigate information correctly. We should not be giving that to teachers on top of everything else that they do. And my daughter got a fantastic education at Glen Ridge High School. She did. She was very fortunate. And librarians were a part of that education. I would hate to see our kids miss out on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Lynn Gavin.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, my name's Lynella Gavin. I live at 22 Hamilton Road. I have a freshman in the high school and a fourth grader at RAS. I just wanted to thank the board and administration for taking this on. I know Budget decisions are never easy. I'm not envious of the jobs that you have, but I would like to ask you to please reconsider a decision to eliminate the position. I believe Superintendent Phillips is correct. There is an abundance of information. In fact, I think there's too much information out there. Times such as these, the speaker before me, I said it, saying it much more eloquently than I am. There's so much disinformation, it's almost impossible to discern what's real and what's not. And I think it's even more difficult for someone that is in middle school, in high school, to do that on their own. Times are definitely changing. Research is part of classes, as it should be. But I think what is proposed for the elimination of the specialist is someone that's specifically trained in research to help our children figure out how to evaluate and evaluate research. Someone that'll specifically teach our kids how to find a resource, how to look at it, not just to receive it. We're asking our teachers to do even more work under the current proposal. Yes, our teachers are currently working with our students to teach them how to research, but it's what you're proposing is actually making our teachers stretch even more, giving them more responsibility for things they don't have the training to do. Especially in a time like now, it's, you know, we're asking these teachers to do so much already, to ask them to then be responsible to show a child how to do the research and then evaluate it is almost asking too much. These teachers have a very finite amount of time with these students, and they're worried about their specific topics, not just on research generally. And I think if we lose a specialist that has the ability to teach our kids what to do, we're actually doing a huge disservice to our community. I am also a teacher in addition to being a parent. And I know that in order to truly learn something and understand something, you need to physically work with something first. And I think if we put all of our eggs in a basket and say everything's going digital, that is true to a point. But if you're trying to teach someone really how to look at something, how to do some research, those physical things still come into play. It's like asking a person to identify where a country is without looking at a map.
Okay.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Lisa Petruzzi. Lisa? Oh, she disappeared.
She has an old version of Zoom. The only way she could speak is I had to make her a panelist.
Okay. Lisa, if you're there, please go ahead.
I'm here, Betsy. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Oh, my document camera's on. Oh, that's okay. Okay. Good evening, everybody. My name is Lisa Petruzzi, and I'm a kindergarten teacher at Forest Avenue School. Tonight, I'm speaking on behalf of the GREA as our association's vice president. The Board of Ed announced on April 26th their plan to eliminate the current position of the library media specialist at the high school. This plan ensures that based on seniority, the library media specialist will remain employed, but instead will be reassigned to the district's 3 lower elementary schools at Central, Forest, and Linden. Unfortunately, this reassignment means that the individual who currently holds the position at these schools and has dedicated 9 years of her service to this community and our school system will be terminated. It is disturbing to see even one of our valued members of our association lose their job, especially through no fault of their own. It is even more concerning that the district appears to see little value in the instruction and services that the high school library media specialist has been providing over the past 22 years. The 7th and 8th grade cycle classes that have been discussed at length this evening have always been considered essential. And although much about the way research is conducted has changed over the years, the need to instruct students on how to effectively find and use information has not. Many would argue that the critical thinking skills required to conduct meaningful research, to evaluate sources, and use information ethically are actually more important today than they ever have been. These informational literacy skills that are introduced in these grades impact student success throughout high school and also offer college readiness skills. At a time when we are all facing unprecedented challenges and there is renewed focus on social emotional learning, staff and student wellness, equity and diversity, it is counterproductive to reduce these resources that are provided by our media specialists. Many districts are in fact hiring additional support staff for these very reasons, while our district sees this as a time to cut such an important position. Knowing that schools will need all available resources as we strive for post-pandemic normalcy.
Lisa, you're at 2 minutes if you could.
Okay, I'm so.
Thank you.
We are hopeful that the American Rescue Plan will help save this very important job. Thank you very much for your time, and please consider our proposal.
Thank you. Next, Brian Arbor. Brian Arbor.
Hello, good evening. My name is Brian Arbor. I live at 278 Bay Avenue, and my son is a second grader at Linden. And I will note that he's having a great experience with Miss Fagan and the library there. But I talk tonight mostly from my professional experience that compels me to oppose eliminating the media specialist position at the high school. I'm an associate professor of political science at John Jay College, CUNY. Here in Glen Ridge, we want our children prepared for college. I know what that means in practical and real life terms. It means that students can understand the assigned reading in my class and take papers and research projects on that I assign. Skills in research and information literacy are essential for students to do well in my class and the class of my colleagues. I rely on the librarians at my college to help me not only craft assignments and to identify the databases and resources needed for students to complete assignments, but I also rely on librarians to work with students and teach them how to evaluate information, to learn what is credible and what is bunk, what is biased and what is neutral, what is vital and what is superfluous. These skills are a foundation for success in college. And these are skills that are essential to navigating the information environment of the modern world. This is why I believe the decision to eliminate the librarian position at GRHS is short-sighted. Librarians teach our students skills that are vital to their success as college students and as citizens. They are uniquely trained to teach these skills to students. I am a much better professor because I rely on the librarians at my institution to help me to teach these skills to our students. And I feel confident saying that our GRHS teachers are better because they can rely on a librarian to teach these skills to our students. I urge you to use funds available from the American Rescue Plan to restore the media specialist position at the high school. I thank you all for listening and your service to our community.
Thank you. Kendra Poster, or Poster, I apologize.
Yeah, it's Kendra Poster.
Okay,
I live at 118 Ridgewood Avenue. I have 2 children, one of whom graduated in the 2020 pandemic graduation and is now a student at Northeastern University, and the other of whom is a sophomore at Glen Ridge High School. I am also a person who works in publishing, book publishing. I work in my position with the Junior Library Guild, which selects books on a subscription model for libraries, and I also work with our library marketing specialist at my company. And I just want to say that through the work that I do with them, I see the letters and the tweets and the Facebook posts that come in from people who say that the libraries were a lifeline to them in their childhood. It's not going to be a surprise to any of you. I know that you all feel strongly that libraries are important. I think what comes as a shock to many of us as parents, and I discovered this when I was talking to people about this meeting, we all noticed that the high school media specialist position was being eliminated. We didn't know what that meant. And as I've been talking to parents who are friends of mine, and indeed to my own 2 children here in the house, when I have said that that means the library is not going to have a head, they were shocked and horrified. In fact, there was a post, which is one of the only reasons that I chose to speak today. On Facebook, somebody was saying that this was all being misrepresented. And I quote from the letter, "All that is being eliminated is the person to handle the library." I feel very strongly that the person to handle the library is incredibly important and should be reinstated. And that's really all I wanted to add. I thank all of you for listening to all of us, and I thank all of my fellow townspeople who are speaking out on this important issue.
Thank you. Now, I noticed that Linnella Gavin and Brian Arbor, I believe you still have your hands up, but I see that we have another opportunity for public comment at the end of the meeting. So if you have more to say, there's a time to do so. But I also see Maggie Reed, who hasn't had a chance to speak yet. So please go ahead.
Oh, she spoke, Betsy.
She did, actually. She spoke.
Did she? Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
I don't
She was
see-
great.
Don't see any other hands. So we will go on, fellow board members, with the rest of our agenda. The next thing is on the agenda is committee and liaison reports, but with the blessing of my colleagues, we have decided that in the interest of time for all of the people, the many people who are on with us tonight, that we will waive the committee and liaison reports and have them on the 24th when we meet again. So that being the case, you all have minutes from executive session and regular meeting and the regular meeting of April 26th. So have you all had a chance to read them? Looks like it. Does anyone have any changes? No changes. All right. If that is the case, Michael, would you move the minutes, please?
Yes, I'll move M1.
All right. May I have a second?
Second.
Second from David Campbell. Okay. Thank you. Barbara, would you call the roll?
Mr. Bonnet,
Aye.
Mr. Campbell,
Aye.
Mr. DeLu,
Aye.
Ms. Gottlieb,
Aye.
Ms. Graham,
Aye.
Ms. St. Aubern,
Aye.
Dr. Yaris Ramos,
Aye.
Ms. Ginsburg.
Aye. Motion carries. Mr. Phillips, correct me if I'm wrong. It doesn't appear that there are any administration items on the agenda or the addendum, yes?
That's correct.
Okay, we will go on to personnel. Tracy, would you move the personnel items?
Yes, I move P1 through P8, which appears on the addendum.
Okay, may I have a second? Oh, Anthony, I'm sorry, Anthony, I didn't see your hand for a minute. A second from Anthony. In keeping with our rules, and we alluded to this a few minutes ago, we discuss personnel matters in executive session. So that being the case, Barbara, would you call the roll?
Mr. Bonnet,
Aye.
Mr. Campbell,
Aye.
Mr. DeLu,
Aye.
Ms. Gottlieb,
Aye.
Ms. Graham,
Aye.
Ms. St. Aubern,
Aye.
Dr. Yaris Ramos,
Aye.
Ms. Ginsburg.
Aye. Motion carries. Curriculum. Michael, would you move the curriculum items, please?
Yeah, I'll move C1.
Okay, may I have a second? Second from, let's see, any hands, any voices? Anthony, thank you, Anthony. Next time, Jocelyn. We have it moved and seconded. Any discussion of any of those curriculum item? Okay. Barbara, would you call the roll?
Mr. Bonnet,
Aye.
Mr. Campbell,
Aye.
Mr. DeLu,
Aye.
Ms. Gottlieb,
Aye.
Ms. Graham,
Aye.
Ms. St. Aubern,
Aye.
Dr. Yaris Ramos,
Aye.
Ms. Ginsburg.
Aye. Okay, the motion carries. We have arrived now rather quickly at the second public comment period for comment.
I'd
Yeah,
like
we
to
need
move
the,
some
business.
I'm
I'd
sorry,
like to move
business.
some business items.
Sorry, I'm
Okay.
David, would you move business?
Yep, I move B1 through B9.
Okay, may I have a second?
I'll second. I'll second.
Jocelyn, thank you. Any discussion on any of these business items, which include financial reports, out-of-district placements, school security funds, et cetera? Any discussion? I don't hear any. I don't see any. All right, that being the case, Barbara, would you call the roll?
Mr. Bonnet,
Aye.
Mr. Campbell,
Aye.
Mr. DeLu,
Aye.
Ms. Gottlieb,
Aye.
Ms. Graham,
Aye.
Ms. St. Aubern,
Aye.
Dr. Yaris Ramos,
Aye.
Ms. Ginsburg.
Aye, motion carries. Now we come to the second public comment period for comments on agenda items or other items that impact the running of the schools. The same rules apply. If you have a comment or question, raise your hand and you'll be recognized. And we will start all over again. And I see Karen Eisen.
Again, Karen Eisen, still at 25 Douglas Road. I'm sorry, but I don't think that Superintendent Phillips answered my question. I think what you said was that we didn't tell you what we were going to cut because it's a personnel matter, but we did tell you a year ago that we could cut, and that's when you should have said something. So if we are not aware of the specifics of an action until it is a done deal, I want to know, is this a done deal? Is this a done deal? Is it done?
I think, Karen, as we said, our ability to recover that position depends on the direction that we get from the Department of Education on the ARP money. And
so the only way this position can be returned is if we get this ARP money. So then it's a done deal unless we somehow get this pot of gold. So my question then goes back to the process, which is how can the community get ahead of information before it is a done deal? We elect you. This community at one point elected me 4 different times to represent their interests. If we do not know what is in our interests and you are deciding on it and we get the information afterward, how can we change anything? How can you represent us? Where is the transparency?
Dirk or Athena, would you like to comment on that?
I think there may have been a misunderstanding or mishearing of the comments. There was a public hearing on the budget. That was in April. The information was provided at that time.
The information about this position being cut was not provided. Otherwise, we all would have been here then rather than now when it's a done deal. So I would like to know when this situation arises again, and I now believe that it could rise again, how does the community get the information before you vote and make these decisions? And I understand the whole personnel issue.
Right, I know. I think that the information
provided the day you approved it.
For those who receive our agenda, and anyone can receive our agenda, all they have to do is be on our email list. For those who receive our agenda, the agenda goes out on the Friday before the meeting. So people can consider what is on the agenda at that time. That gives them the weekend plus Monday, plus coming to our meeting. And we had public comment before we voted on the budget. And of course, the elimination of this position was part of the budget. So there was an opportunity, even though we could not discuss specific personnel before that, there was the opportunity. So I would encourage people, if they are concerned, to get in touch with the board office and get on the list to receive the agenda electronically on Friday, so that you can stay abreast of what is going on with the board. And thank you, Karen. And now we have Erin Ackerman.
Since I get a second shot, this Erin Ackerman, 278 Bay Avenue, parent of 1 second grader at Linden Avenue School. And since I left this out of my previous remarks, which mostly focused on the importance of the high school position, I want to speak to my personal experience, that of my child working with Mrs. Fagan, who, as was referenced earlier, may lose her position as someone is reassigned. Losing Mrs. Fagan under any circumstance would be a tremendous loss for our schools. During this past year, I've had much more of an opportunity to observe what's going on in my son's school day. And I've communicated to the superintendent and Dr. Caravello and my son's teachers how impressed I am overall and how thrilled I am generally to be part of this school district. As a librarian, I have been incredibly impressed, completely wowed by how substantive Mrs. Fagan's library sessions are. And I've appreciated how deftly she includes not just a variety of written genres and interests, but how thoughtfully she has developed a collection that exposes our youngest learners to a diverse range of authors, experiences, and perspectives. That doesn't happen by accident. We have dominant biases in publishing, in libraries, in schools that tend to underrepresent the already underrepresented voices. Representation matters, and Mrs. Fagan understands we all need diverse books. Her lessons make my reluctant reader want to read, find out more, and more aware of the world in which we live. She is a tremendous leader in what she does and what she is bringing to our youngest learners. It's not just about establishing information literacy for our oldest students. It's about keeping the expertise we have already at the K-2 level. Thank you.
Thank you. I see Lynella Gavin. Lynella? Okay, her hand went away. Let's, if Lynella, if you're listening and can put your hand up again, we'll come back. I see your hand again.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes, yes.
Sorry.
That's
Lynella
okay.
Gavin, 22 Hamilton Road. Just wanted to make one last point about how big of a loss it would be to lose a physical library in the high school and a trained librarian just by what the last 14 months has shown us alone. The fact that we're relying so much on electronic learning, so much on electronic information, shows us that it doesn't work for every student. And the students actually need a physical person in a physical space, physical books in order to really learn. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Mr. Phillips, would you comment on the continuing existence of the book collection?
Yes, what's currently in place, the book selections, the circulation, students will still have that available in the future.
Okay, thank you. Going on, Megan Deneen. Megan?
How about now?
Yeah, well, I can hear you. Thank you.
Sorry about that. 71 Windsor Place, Megan Deneen. I wanted to ask one quick question about the budget process. So,
sure.
And I just apologize. So you noted that there would be in the notes that went out on Friday that there would be discussion with regard to removing entire positions at the school.
I don't have those notes in front of me, but we noted that there would be, I believe, on the agenda, it notes. Dirk, can you speak to that? It notes.
Yeah, it notes that there's a budget presentation, and that's which any cuts to a budget obviously is presented, and the public has a right to comment after the budget presentation.
Okay, so just I would just state then it's a little bit disingenuous to say that people should have known that then the position of one specific position that is pretty overreaching and overarching across 7th through 12th grades was going to be removed. I think people wouldn't have understood that if it wasn't specifically stated. And then the other thing that I was going to note is I think I mentioned before, I've had the benefit of being a volunteer at both Linden and at Ridgewood in the libraries. And Mrs. Fagan is wonderful. And I have been, I guess, maybe disappointed sitting and listening to how the students in Ridgewood are guided to do research projects and sort of sent on their own to just Google through the internet to pull up information. And I think it is just so critical to have guidance in this era of mis and disinformation, and somebody that students can go to outside of their teachers to confirm that they are putting together reference materials for projects or learning how to find reference materials for projects that are relevant and true. So And then separately, just as a note for Mrs. Fagan, watching Mrs. Fagan with the kids and watching her lessons for the kids, because she is the introduction to books and reading outside of their teachers, and teaching them how to love to read is so important that this is a really, really, those two roles are so critical. It is very, very sad to think that those are things that are up for grabs within this district that is supposed to be exceptional.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For those who don't know her, Athena Cornell is one of our board attorneys. Athena, can you speak to the timetables that we work with regard to notifying employees of a change in their status like this one?
Well, most personnel matters are obviously confidential and discussed outside of a public process. But that notification with regard to renewals or reassignments, those things are required to be done by May 15th. And the budget process extends or starts well before that. And I think if you review the presentations and the information provided therein, you will find it contained there.
Okay. Next, Molly.
Betsy,
sorry.
I'm sorry, before we get on, I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but I don't want it to be left out there that the process at RAS is that the kids are not shown how to use the internet or how to do research. I think that's a pretty unfair characterization of what's going on at RAS. So I didn't want to leave that unsaid.
Okay.
Out of respect for the person that's working on that over there.
Sure. All right. Thank you. Molly.
Hi, Molly Eisen again, still a 2009 graduate. So I'm a bit confused by you saying to check the agenda for more specifics, because even though I don't get the emails, I do still check the agendas, because I care about my former teachers and colleagues, the ones who taught me about critical thinking and thesis statements and all that when I was a student, and are really also a great reason why I'm speaking out today, because they taught me to speak out for what I think is important. So shout out to all my former teachers who are still teaching in the district. But I do read the agendas every single time they're posted, and nowhere in the agenda does it give specifics about which positions are being eliminated. And in fact, when I'm looking back at the early April one, I believe it's April 5th, there's no mention of the budget in there. So I'm a little confused why, you're telling people subscribe to our emails and, look at the agendas when the specific information isn't on the agendas. So are people supposed to be mind readers and know specifically what you're going to talk about ahead of time? Just wondering. Thank you.
We invite them to the budget presentation. We announce the budget hearing, which is a requirement well in advance. So at the meeting prior to the April 26th meeting, the budget hearing was announced. I don't know what to tell you on that. Dirk, do you want to add to that?
I would just, again, we have two budget presentations. One's a preliminary budget where we will mention that if there's going to be personnel staffing cuts, that's part of that presentation. It doesn't go into details about the actual positions. But if you recognize that there will be cuts, then you would hopefully show up to our formal budget presentation that happens at the end of April.
Okay, Kristen Carl.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, great. Sorry. Hi, great. Thank you. I'm Kristen Carl. I'm at 52 Midland Avenue, and I have two kids in the district at Linden Avenue School. And so I don't have prepared comments, but I just wanted to also add, as an assistant professor of political science at Stevens Institute of Technology in Hoboken, that I would echo some of the earlier comments about how important it is to prepare our students for the path ahead, whether that's college or the real world, that really the certified media specialist, the role cannot just be filled by our existing classroom teachers. I would say that what we're doing when you try and replace that specialist is devaluing their expertise and what they offer to our students and overburdening our existing classroom teachers who are already overworked. I know we all agree with that. And so I would just like to echo that. I think both the board, I appreciate all you're doing. I understand how difficult the budgetary decisions are. And I would still advocate pretty strongly that you reinstate this position if it's with the funds from the Rescue Act. I think that's great, although to my ear, that sounds like a short-term solution. And so I don't love that as a long-term solution either. And I would also add, for transparency reasons, that I believe requesting an open comment period after the specific positions are announced, it's very difficult. I try to follow the Board of Ed. I read the emails, I see the things, and I did not see this. I understand that it was posted that this was part of budget. But again, to announce the specific positions and then vote on it quite quickly without a public comment period, it's just, in terms of transparency, seems very difficult to give people time to formulate their thoughts, to come to the meeting, to do those things. Thank you.
Thank you. Trisina. Trisina?
Thank you. I wasn't unmuted, so it just went through. Yeah, I have to make sure I comment as the advocacy chair for NJSL and with Sean Spiller's letter on record that this is an integral issue with our ALA Library Bill of Rights. School librarians or master level school librarians, we are matched with school counselors as far as the privacy rights to students. Protecting user privacy and confidentiality has long been an integral part of the intellectual freedom mission of libraries, and the right to free inquiry, especially at the high school level, is a First Amendment right, depending on the ability to read and access information. I think that this needs to be addressed, that students might be receiving books from volunteers, from teachers, whereas the school librarian is the person in place to protect library users' personally identified information, students who are coming of age, students who might have inquiry that is specific to their own privacy. So I do think that that needs to be reflected on. There's a reason why this position is in place at all grade levels, and there's a reason why volunteers, school teachers, classroom collections are not the same as curated material. I can supply that information to your board, and I think that's a very important message that needs to be clear in Mr. Phillips' recognition of a high school certified school media specialist. Thank you.
Thank you. Stephanie Bermudez.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay. All right. I unmuted, but it somehow muted again. Anyway, I am a school library media specialist in Essex County, and I really, tonight was the first night that I heard that you're eliminating this position. I'm a high school media specialist, so I know like how important it is to, I know how important my job is to the school, to the students. I grew up in Ridgewood, which I always felt like Glen Ridge and Ridgewood were very identical. As you know, I mean, I'm out of school a long time, almost 40 years, but I just can't believe that that you're taking this path. My job, I teach students not to plagiarize, to be ready for college, to write a works cited, to complete their senior research paper. And I know my job, it's not just teaching students, it's looking for the books for the students that would be of interest to them. I know, Mr. Phillips, you think that somebody can just check out the books and the kids can take the books, or but somebody needs to be there to put the books into the system. What you get in a media specialist is incredible. The amount of work that we work with the teachers, you know, across all the curriculum, you know, with different projects, with working with the public library and working between, you know, being like an avenue to both, you know, the public library and, you know, to provide this for our students. And I just can't believe that a town like Glen Ridge that has students going to Ivy League schools would take this measure. And that's all I wanted to say. I'm really upset. Because I even knew someone that worked in your district and used to be like at the NJEA conferences. I used to.
Thank you. Thank you. Megan Deneen.
I already spoke this.
Already spoke. All right.
She might have left her hand up.
Probably. Okay. Given that, I see one more hand, Nadia Melachar, and again, apologies if I have massacred your name. Yeah, that hand disappeared. Nadia is back. Go ahead, please.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Thanks. I just wanted just a couple more clarifications on the budget presentation.
Yes.
So was it that the primary budget presentation is usually at the beginning of April? Is that right?
The preliminary.
It's in March.
It's in March. Okay, in March. And is that preliminary budget presentation part of the regular BOE meeting, or is it a separate meeting?
It's a part of the regular BOE meeting, so it's advertised in advance. And
oh, it was in March. Okay. Oh, okay. So it was just part. So there's not a separate budget meeting. It's part of the regular. Okay.
No. It's always part of both the preliminary and final budget meeting are always part of a regularly scheduled board meeting.
Okay. Okay. And the other comment I'll throw out there is that, you know, I'm a finance and budgeting professional, and you know, I see everybody is like really invested in keeping this position. But I just wanted to throw out the idea that, you know, it seems like this emergency funding is the path for saving the position, but like there's got to be alternatives. There's got to be other ways, like other ways to think about ways of saving the position other than this emergency funding that may or may not happen, and to what degree. So it's just a budgeting comment.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Phillips, would you like to address that issue?
Well, it is a big process. It is a process that starts in the fall and involves teachers at the beginning, so submitting their budgets, and the principals and building administrators and department heads meeting and submitting their budget, and then us compiling the budget, and then having to work a very difficult situation. What we originally get needs to be dwindled down, and it's always a tough decisions. We work with the finance committee who supports the budget. Anytime that we make the cuts, it's no, if we don't make this cut, it's a cut somewhere else that another group or other individuals would have be impacted on it. So we have to prioritize what we believe will be the most impactful on our students and try to keep those positions. And those are discussions that we're having throughout late fall into March and April.
And I should add that we start each year. Glen Ridge is demographically a wealthy town, but in terms of state aid, we are a poor town. Only 5% of our budget comes from state aid, as opposed to the state average, which is about 40%. And about 80% of our budget is salaries and benefits, which means that we don't have much discretionary income left for anything else. We have costs, most of our costs rise in excess of our 2% tax cap per each year. So it makes budgeting very difficult, and hard choices always have to be made. over my time on the board, I can think of lots of very, very difficult choices. This year, the change this year, and we are not fully funded under the state school funding formula. We're working towards it, but we're not there. This year, the change has been the advent of this federal money. But unfortunately, between the federal government and the DOE, who have to give us the guidance and a lot of guidance on how it's going to be used, they are not cognizant or mindful of any timelines that we might have. You would think the DOE would be, but they also have to depend on the federal government for this. So unfortunately, the situation in which we find ourselves requires some more guidance on that ARP money to make any determinations. So, but budgeting is a very complex, very difficult, sometimes wrenching affair, as it is in this case. I see Allison.
Hey, Betsy, it's your old friend Jacob Schwam. How are you? 145 Hawthorne Avenue.
Good to see you. Thank you.
Good to see you too. So first off, I wanted to see if we could get a raise of hands here who voted for the elimination of the media position, so we know who we can vote against in the upcoming election in November. That's first. Secondly, we seem to have $25,000, $30,000, $35,000 for an equity survey that we could have used towards the funding of the position that's going to be eliminated. So I'd like to know how you decided to eliminate a position while spending unnecessary funds on a survey through the equity survey. The other question I have is, and this is specifically to Mr. Phillips, what other districts in New Jersey have eliminated their librarian in the high school? And who have you reached out to pick this position to eliminate as opposed to any other position? This looks to me like a mismanagement of funds and a mismanagement of resources and a budgetary issue that of mismanaged money. We should be able to fund this. I think this is one of the craziest things I've ever heard. In the days of fake news and the days of all of this, we're eliminating our librarian, but we spend $30,000. You found $30,000 to put out a survey that eliminates, that is against people of the Jewish faith like myself. They weren't included in there. It's an absolutely ridiculous survey. But what other districts, Dirk, are doing this and that have been successful?
Dirk,
and the hands up. I'd like a hands up also on who voted for this, so I know when I go for the Board of Ed position in November, I know who to rally against.
It was a unanimous vote on the budget. We voted on the total budget, not on specific budget items. So it was a unanimous vote on the budget. And Dirk, would you like to address any of those other questions?
Well, I would say the three districts I know off the top of my head is Chatham, Cedar Grove, and I believe the Freehold Regional District also eliminated their media specialists.
And I should add Freehold Regional is a regional high school district, which has only high schools. It has, I think, 6 high schools. Okay, I see Allison.
That Allison was the last person who spoke. That was Jacob.
I'm sorry, and I was thinking Jacob, and it's Allison. Okay, rather long evening. All right, if there are no other, I see Karen Eisen's hand again, but as you know, every person gets 2 minutes apiece in the first public comment and the second public comment. So of course, we are here to be emailed, and as you have done in the past, we will be meeting again on May 24th, so there is additional time for additional opportunity for comment.
Betsy, Maggie Reed has her hand up again. I don't
Maggie
believe she
Reed,
spoke
yes.
in the second public section.
Maggie Reed, please.
Just a quick, the town council meeting is going on right now as well, and their meetings happen on the second and fourth Monday of every month, I was just told. I was trying to listen to both at the same time. Our new chief of police was just sworn in. I think that's kind of a really important thing that all of us know. Is there any way that the Board of Ed could move their meetings to a different time? Because you've been overlapping with the town council, and I just think if we all want to be civically minded, we want to be at both of these meetings.
Well, we used to, quite a long time ago, be on a different schedule than the town council, but then the town council changed their meeting times. And
Okay.
so, you know, you sometimes get the feeling the two bodies are chasing each other. And I appreciate your comment, because sometimes I would love to
Yeah.
go to the town council meeting. So, so thank you. I don't know, you know, if it's practical to change it, but if it's practical to consider it, but thank you for that comment.
Yeah, please consider it. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? All right, if that is the case, we have concluded tonight's business, and I would like to thank all of our attendees for taking the time to listen in, to share your thoughts with us. It is important for us. It's important for the process. So with that, may I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Moved by David. May I have a second? Second from Duval. Okay, thank you all.